Morning world, it's the 9th of November 2018, it's about 9 a.m. in the morning Singapore time, it's about 1 a.m. in the morning UK time, and it's about 8 p.m. in the evening on the 8th of November New York time. So this is a bit of what I would arrogantly call a masterclass on Jupiter into Sagittarius. Let's look at Jupiter first of all. It's well known as being the biggest of planets. It's actually 2.5 times bigger than all the other planets in the sky put together. Jupiter is big, and yet it's shrinking. Jupiter shrinks by about 2 centimeters each year. It's half the size now it was when it was formed some 6 billion years ago. Jupiter is the only planet that you can't actually land on. Jupiter has no substance. It is a gas giant. You see, there's Jupiter and Saturn, which are the gas giants, and there's Uranus and Neptune, which are the ice giants. Saturn is a kind of in between Jupiter and Uranus, Neptune, because Saturn is 2.5 times further from the Sun than Jupiter, so its gas is kind of frozen solid into ice crystals that compact in on each other, giving a sense of gravity. But Jupiter's gas is billows, it billows out. Jupiter's rather unique in that it gives out more than 2 times as much heat and light as it picks up from the Sun. Now Jupiter would need to be about 70 times, 80 times bigger and hotter than it actually is to become a sun, even though it has God knows how many moons, hundreds of little moons, including 4 main ones. But the smallest red dwarf star is only 30% bigger than Jupiter. Jupiter could become a sun, a small dwarf star anyway, if it were hot enough. Jupiter gives out heat, it gives out light. Jupiter, if on a particularly bright, when Jupiter's at its closest and you're under absolutely clear sky with no light pollution, Jupiter can cast a shadow. I've never seen it myself. I've seen moon shadow and I've seen Venus shadow, but I've never seen Jupiter shadow. That'd be interesting to see. Not only is it big, but think of it in terms of its astrological meaning. Jupiter is the planet of growth, as Saturn is a planet of constriction. Because Jupiter gives out so much light and heat, it deals with words like optimism, hope, humour, faith, belief. Jupiter expands, whether it is expanding waistline, as I know as I'm getting older, whether it is expanding in terms of knowledge. Jupiter, because it rules Sagittarius, doesn't go so much for words or information. Jupiter goes for the bigger picture, as in knowledge and the wisdom that lies behind words. Wisdom, the domain of the wise. When you look at the mythology of Jupiter, if you go back to the start of the Greek mythology, Uranus, or Uranus as it's now known, was one of the main 3 original, was one of the triptych of original Greek gods stroke goddesses. And Uranus became the father of a group of sort of pretty much monstrous beings called the Titans, and more on them another time perhaps. But the most human-like of the Titans was Kronos, Saturn, old father time. Same as this guy here. Him with the skeleton and the scythe and the cowl. Kronos gave birth to a number of children, but he was so feared that his children would usurp him, as he did his father, that he ate all his children at birth. He ate Hades, stroke Pluto. He ate Poseidon, stroke Neptune. He ate his 3 daughters, Hestia, stroke Vesta, Juno, stroke Hera, and Athena, stroke Pallas Athene. And then he tried to eat his 6th child, Zeus, stroke Jupiter. But Rhea, his sister, stroke wife, decided to deceive him because she didn't want her children out, so she kept Jupiter out and fed Kronos a hot stone instead. Jupiter grew up outside of his father's belly and eventually returned to the family home and disemboweled his father, freeing his children from his father's stomach. As a result of this, the original 6 of Kronos' children became the original Olympians, and this is the roots of the war between the Olympians and the Titans. Jupiter, stroke Zeus, became the king of the gods. When Jupiter and his brothers defeated Kronos, Jupiter took the overworld, Poseidon took the water world, Hades took the underworld. So Jupiter is seen as the king of the gods, and because he's big, he's seen as the font of all wisdom, the font of all knowledge. Certainly he brings a lot of, not hubris, but because he's a gas giant, because there's no substance to him, he tends to over-exaggerate, over-inflate, hot air. He also brings humour, remember, and optimism and faith and belief. But he does also promise more than he can deliver. When you find Jupiter in a horoscope in a strong position, that person, depending on the aspect and the sign of Jupiter, will either over-exaggerate, over-amplify, be overweight, overspend, overindulge, or sometimes the complete opposite: undercut, undermine, undervalue, anorexia. Jupiter works in negative as well when it goes really minimal. Jupiter moved into Sagittarius yesterday. Jupiter's orbit is 11.86 years, so it's effectively 1 year in each sign of the zodiac. Because of its retrograde movements, it spends on average about 12.5 to 13 months in each sign. And I've developed this idea around Jupiter's cycle. For example, with this Jupiter in Sagittarius movement, it's moved into Sagittarius yesterday, and it will now move forward until early April, when it will stand still and then move back until early August, and then move forward again until it leaves Sagittarius and moves into Capricorn in early mid-December 2019. Looking at that threefold movement period of Jupiter, it's possible to define it as 3 separate influences in your life. The first phase, when Jupiter moves forward, is when it promises lots of growth. It says, you can do this, we can do that, here's some investment, here's a big opportunity, but it's all words. There's no substance. Then when Jupiter goes retrograde, the people go, yeah, maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating. So it's a time of retrospect and reassessment. And then when Jupiter moves forward again, that's when the real growth will occur. So if this is happening, for example, in your second house, then there's going to be lots of opportunities to make money in the first few months of the year. Nothing will come of it. You spend the middle of the year going, what did I do wrong? And then in the last third of the year, you actually make the money. And you can apply that to any house in the zodiac. Jupiter's moving into its own sign. Sagittarius' principle is that of higher knowledge. People with a lot of Sagittarius or a lot of Jupiter often become teachers, lawyers, judges, certainly great travellers. It's not so much travel for party, beaches or holiday, more travel for culture study, anthropology and ethnicity. These are the people who don't learn by teachers or textbooks, they learn by osmosis, immersing yourself in a culture and soaking it up by being in it. You'd think that Jupiter in Sagittarius is a good thing, and perhaps it is actually. It's certainly Jupiter's favourite sign to be. And over the next year, while Jupiter is in Sagittarius, I do expect some interesting pronouncements worldwide around the changing of the laws, whether it be in global politics, global economics, particularly global banking, but also in other areas, in sort of sports, for example. You can expect to see athletics and football go through major shake-ups over the coming year, and to see the laws being tightened and clarified more. You can expect with Jupiter and Sagittarius that the idea of a more collective education system becoming recognised across the world is going to be happening, and that's not a bad thing. Have a look in your own chart at what house Sagittarius occupies and where Jupiter's coming in. perhaps the key phrase of all with Jupiter. If you want to use Jupiter sensibly and use its energy wisely, then the key phrase is quality, not quantity. Why go for a big slab of processed fat that's allegedly chocolate if you can have 1 cube of 100% organic pure cocoa? Why go and buy a Ferrari if a second-hand Ford or Opel will do? Quality, not quantity. Ostentatiousness, over-exaggeration, overindulgence really doesn't work. That's where Jupiter has a field day, but at the end it crashes and burns because there's no substance to it. I think that Jupiter in Sagittarius in the first few months of its reign is going to run riot. I think the excesses of the world are going to become even more pronounced, whether it be environmental, the bank systems, the political bombasticness of the world that we live in at the moment. But then around early April, as Jupiter stands still and starts going retrograde, I suspect that hopefully a kind of dawn of collective sanity may emerge. And by the time we're into August next year, hopefully a degree of wisdom will be developing collectively in a way that's going to make a lot of people question the excesses of recent times and say, do we need to do this? Without wishing to push buttons or be critical of other countries' choice of systems, look at the very large number of mass shootings there are in America now compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if there was a mass shooting in America, it was 5 or 6 people. It's been done by a handgun or a rifle. Now it's been done by a multi-chamber submachine gun. This is classic Jupiter excess, and of course America has Sagittarius rising, so it's ruled by Jupiter. It is a Jupiterian country, and if you need evidence of this, look at the brilliant way in which America's foreign aid program actually sends out food to so many different countries of the world. America gives out more food, more foreign aid, more money than any other country in the world because it's big-hearted and generous, even if it does have what to many people outside of America are really crazy gun laws. But it's a young country. It's only about 8 generations old. It's still maturing. Jupiter brings excess. It also brings humour. It brings growth and wisdom. It also brings the opportunity to go over the top. And now Jupiter's in its own home. I suspect that over the coming year we're going to see an ever-increasing degree of fundamentalism in religion, because religion comes under the sign of Sagittarius. It's a belief system, a dogma, a theology. And with Jupiter in Sagittarius, we're going to see the ongoing and in fact increasing decrease in church attendances as more and more people find their own relationship with the divine, their own relationship with spirit. So the church attendances will go down. People will be turning less and less to any imposed avatars. Yet as religion goes down, so fundamentalism, at least in the short term, will increase as the fanatics try and convince more and more people that their way is the only way. And it doesn't matter what country you're in or what religion you adhere to, fanaticism is on the rise. So I do expect this next 4 or 5 months to see further extremes of behaviour, but then from April onwards, I hope we're going to start seeing a bit more collective sanity. I look forward to Jupiter in Sagittarius. Jupiter in Scorpio has not been a bad thing. It's not a bad position for Jupiter. But Jupiter in Sagittarius is looking good. And of course, in a year's time, Jupiter's going to move into Capricorn, where it will then join Saturn and Pluto. And that's a whole different ballgame. That hasn't happened in living memory. That hasn't happened for hundreds of years. Then we'll talk about some type of global shift in a way that will be palpable and will be permanent. We can wait for that one for another year. Meantime, Jupiter's in Sagittarius. There is a case here for saying that 1 bottle of champagne is better than 10 bottles of beer. If you're going to indulge, do it in style. Quality beats quantity. That's going to be the buzzword for this journey of Jupiter through Sagittarius. Enjoy it. Find out what house in your own chart it's in and enjoy it. Enjoy the growth, but be moderate enough to say, I'll stop here, I've had enough. Catch you later, world. Bye.